Welcome to the video, guys. The series is making a return. This one is going to include the entire month of June, because the candidates and honourable mentions have generally been acting like this for at least a few weeks now, so we might as well roll them all into one. For anyone who doesn't know, to win this prestigious award, you need to be someone who has appeared in the media, social media, or somewhere for the public to see and acted like a complete and utter shitweasel. Which, I will remind you what the definition of a shitweasel is. A shitweasel is someone who does something extremely disingenuous, lies, or in other words, just acts like the media. You should all know what I mean by now, but for anyone who doesn't, there it is. Now obviously, with what's been going on recently, there is a never-ending list of these. I've tried to take those who are most deserving of it, which I'm sure most, if not all of you would agree with. So let's start it off with some honourable mentions. And I think the first of those honourable mentions should be, of course, the Premier League. As you all know, the Premier League are running around with BLM emblazoned on the back of their shirts. And when Jake Heppel paid for a plane to fly over the Burnley vs Manchester City match with a banner saying White Lives Matter Burnley on it, they all completely shit the bed and exposed themselves as a bunch of snivelling shitweasels, but even that was not enough to take the top spot. So let's move on and see our next honourable mention. And that is none other than Dr. Gopal, the Cambridge University professor who ran around screaming that white lives don't matter. Cambridge University are also included in this because they doubled down and kept her in the job. And as we can see here, they actually promoted her to a full professor because of it. Let me get this straight. A professor at Cambridge University proclaims that white lives do not matter, and she gets promoted to full professor. Noah Carl 90 is fired from the same university because bruh intelligence research is Nazism, and Jordan Peterson has a fellowship rescinded, which I'm sure you would agree warrants an honourable mention in this, and on another week or in another month they could have actually won it. Now, another honourable mention is of course the BLM movement and their fundraising page, which obviously shows what their true agenda is. In normal times, they would actually win this award, but there are some who have gone above and beyond and told those Marxist shitweasels to hold their beer, which we will get to now, as we approach the top 3 and the real candidates for this week's award. Now, the first candidate to win this prestigious award is none other than the BBC, the Biased Broadcasting Corporation. Now, the BBC are constantly up to no good. Just yesterday, they were promoting Black Pound Day, which is just nonsensical, and just goes to show what type of snivelling shitweasels they really are. But the main reason that got them in this video has to be the headline from the start of the month that said Black Lives Matter protests in London were largely peaceful after 27 police officers were injured. This saying and headline has now obviously become a meme, and long may it continue, so we never forget what the BBC was up to earlier this month. And their never-ending race baiting obviously didn't stop there. They continued throughout the month. There's no point in me going through it. You can literally pick from any day you want over the last 30, and you will see them acting like snivelling shitweasels at the end of the day. So definitely worthy of a nomination and in with a chance of winning this week's award. Next up, we have none other than Sky News, who have been prolific over the last few weeks, but culminating in the last week or so with a couple of clips that we will take a look at in a moment. Sky News has literally been trying to tell everyone to hold their beer over the last week, as I'm sure you will know from the videos I've made. Starting of course with this one here you see on the screen, where Adam Bolton had to silence the ex-police chief for pointing out the facts of life that go against the media's deranged narrative. It got so bad that Adam Bolton just randomly cut him off out of the blue for no apparent reason, and even went on Twitter afterwards and tried to claim that his time was up and he had to go to a break. Though obviously before it he had said nothing about running out of time, which they always do. So we know he's lying, and definitely gives Sky News and Adam Bolton this nomination for Shitweasel of the Week. And you know what? Let's take a quick look at the moment when he cuts him off.
In police custody, generally drug overdoses. Of those 16, only 1 was black. Last year, police shot 3 people dead. Only 1 of those were black. There is a real narrative that's going on here, I think driven by people within the Black Lives Matter movement who want to destabilise and disrupt society.
Okay, so we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, obviously, they wasn't finished there, because during the situation that occurred in Glasgow the other day, we had one of the shitweasel reporters coming out with this.
12:50, screaming came from the reception area in a hotel which, as I say, was occupied largely, if not totally by asylum seekers and refugees. Now, this has been a subject of some controversy in Glasgow. At the start of the coronavirus pandemic, something like 350 or more were decanted from the accommodation they were in into hotels like the Park Inn. Now, groups campaigning on their behalf have been very vocal about the conditions which they regarded as wholly unsatisfactory. And indeed, I've spoken to somebody, an asylum seeker who was in the hotel when this incident took place. He's told me about limited Wi-Fi, which made it difficult to get in touch with relatives back home. The quality of food was very poor. There was little to no money given to the asylum seekers. And critically, at this time, they weren't afforded any degree of social distancing. They were in properties around the city where they could have coped with coronavirus far better, they say, than to be thrust together into this communal environment. So a great degree of unhappiness. Indeed, having spoken to one of the campaign groups in Glasgow on behalf of them, they described these people, the residents of the Park Inn and other places, as desperate people getting more desperate with time. Indeed, it's only in the past couple of weeks that we saw the suicide of an asylum seeker who had reached the end of the road in terms of his ability to cope with conditions he regarded, and many like him regard, as untenable and unacceptable.
Now, I think you will agree that clip there and the one before it certainly put Sky News up in the running for Shit Weasel of the Week. To stand there defending what this guy done after he had just knifed multiple people is truly unbelievable, if of course it wasn't coming from Sky, given what we had seen just a couple of days before from Adam Bolton. So as I've said already, Sky News have definitely earned this nomination here. Now let's move on to our final nomination, who I am sure you will agree definitely deserves this nomination here. That is none other than Sadiq Khan, who started out the month praising peaceful protests in London, but claimed a tiny minority were violent, which we all know is absolute bollocks. They were not peaceful protests in the slightest. People may have been there protesting peacefully, but there was a hell of a lot of people causing a lot of trouble during the first week of protests. Much like the BBC, Sadiq Khan tried to deny reality. Following on from that, just a few days later, Sadiq Khan ordered a review of London's statues and street names, caving in to the pressure of the woke mob, when, realistically, he should have no right to do that. This little tosspot then went one step further by boarding up Winston Churchill's statue and the cenotaph in central London, rather than just protecting them, which is obviously his job, and Cressida Dix, who is also included in this nomination, but less so. Sadiq Khan at the end of the day is in charge as the London mayor. He then followed that up a few days later by urging Londoners not to join the protests amid threats of COVID-19 and far-right counter-protests, which they really weren't far-right counter-protests. They were football fans, veterans and patriots looking to defend the statues that Sadiq Khan wasn't bothering to do. Now, as you all know, the week before this, he was promoting the BLM protests like he was being paid for it. But as soon as there are counter-protests, he wants to stop it, say it's illegal, and they suddenly might catch coronavirus, which is not something he cared about, as I said, a week before. Now, in a very active month for Sadiq Khan, he had to be bailed out a couple of times, demanding money from the government to help London services that he had run into the ground, forcing, as most of you know, an embarrassing finance review after being forced to beg money from Boris that we laughed at the time and I made a couple of videos on. He actually lost control of TfL and a few other things because of this situation. He then, just under a week ago now, decided to go out to the media and admit his failure and sit there complaining about his mental health during the coronavirus lockdown. I'm sure being stinking rich makes it extremely difficult to deal with a coronavirus lockdown while people are losing their jobs and struggling to live, you absolute tosspot. It says here, Sadiq Khan has opened up about his mental health struggles during the lockdown. What a snivelling shitweasel this idiot actually is. And he finished off this month yesterday by running around claiming that he's going to have to cut the budgets of the Met Police and TfL, despite obviously being given a £1.6 billion bailout and the shit show that we have seen in the last few weeks, with various attacks on police coming almost every time they're deployed against some form of BLM protest. Now, I'm sure you would agree, all of our nominations here, and even the honourable mentions, all deserve an award of Shit Weasel of the Week. Unfortunately, we cannot give it to all, and during the making of this video, I have sat there umming and ahhing about who should win, mainly between Sky News and Sadiq Khan. It is a very tough decision, I think you would all agree. Sadiq Khan's crimes are vast and numerous, but we expect no more from him. Sly News, I think you would all agree, have tried to go above and beyond. They have certainly told the BBC to hold their beer, who I really can't give the award to this time, even though they usually deserve it. It is the BBC after all. So, after a lot of deliberation, let's find out who this week's winner is. Can I get a drum roll, please? And it has to be both of them, Sky News and Sadiq Khan. While Sadiq Khan has done far more, as we went through just a moment ago, Sky News' transgressions against the people of this country are too much, just in the short few clips that we see earlier. They have to take this crown alongside Sadiq Khan. I really cannot choose between them. So well done Sky News and London Mayor Sadiq Khan. You have the distinct honour of earning yourself the award of Shit Weasel of the Week. Remember guys to follow me over on Parler, I am very active over there, and actually announced to them that I was making this Shit Weasel of the Week video over there, so it is a good place to find out what I'm doing. But as always, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who supports the channel, and my other social media links are down in the video description if you want to come and support me on Twitter, BitChute, and a variety of other platforms, including my second YouTube channel. As I said, all links are down in the video description.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going and we are glad to be going. We're off.